with Matt Galloway.
I was born loving animals and being fascinated and curious. I used to save up my pennies of pocket money. This is during the war. And I found a little second-hand bookshop with books piled higgledy-piggledy all over the place. And little old man, I don't think he knew where any book was, but he didn't mind this 10-year-old rummaging around. And I found this little book, which I could just afford to buy. And I took it home up my favorite tree, and I read it, and I fell in love. That was Tarzan, Tarzan of the Apes. And you know, little girls of 10 can be very romantic. So this glorious Lord of the Jungle, and what did Tarzan do? He married the wrong Jane. So anyway, that was my dream began. I will grow up, go to Africa, live with wild animals, and write books about them. Everybody laughed. How will you do that? You don't have money, don't know much about Africa, it's a dangerous place, and you're just a girl. Not my mother. If you really want to do something like this, you'll have to work really hard, take advantage of every opportunity, and if you don't give up, hopefully you find a way. So, you know, cutting the story short, couldn't go to university, no money, got an invitation to Kenya from a school friend, saved up money by working as a waitress, and got out there and met Dr. Louis Leakey, who offered me this opportunity of studying chimps. I see humanity as at the mouth of a very long, very dark tunnel, and right at the end there's a little light. That's hope. But it's no good sitting waiting for hope to come. We've got to roll up our sleeves, crawl under, climb over, work around all the obstacles.
That was Jane Goodall. You can find the full interview on The Current's website. That's all for Storylines for this week. Storylines is produced by AC Rowe. The show is part of the CBC Audio Doc Unit. If you enjoyed today's show, check out our podcast. We're on CBC Listen, Spotify, Apple, Google, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Brad Bedelt. Thanks for listening.
This is CBC Radio 1, 990 AM, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Your home, your street, your neighborhood, your community, your country, your world, your news that matters, news that belongs to you. Your World Tonight, every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1. On demand on the CBC Listen app and everywhere you get your podcasts.
You know the feeling of finding a really good podcast? Or the feeling of someone always being there, like your favorite radio show? Stream CBC Podcasts, CBC Music, and CBC Radio anytime.
CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Rosanna Hempel in Winnipeg. At 12 o'clock, it's -5 in Winnipeg. Becoming a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon, a high of -2, wind chill -4 this afternoon. Groups helping newcomers settle in Winnipeg are demanding the city live up to its promise and put money where its mouth is. In 2020, the city created a policy saying all newcomers are welcome. However, groups including the Manitoba Association of Newcomer Service Organizations says money and staffing are needed. It says other cities have inclusive websites in other languages and even full departments with welcome services. Abdiher Ahmed at the Aurora Family Centre says the city needs to create 2 positions to specifically help newcomers.
There's a reason why many newcomers choose Winnipeg as their home, because they love this city. Let us not let them down. let us not be left behind by other cities in terms of welcoming newcomers. Let us not live in the past where we talked about immigration as a federal issue.
The groups are also calling for training for city staff and a newcomer welcome message on the City of Winnipeg's website. Now to Jerusalem. The Speaker of the Israeli Knesset announcing the results of a vote. 99 of the 120 lawmakers voted to support Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's opposition to what he called the unilateral creation of a Palestinian state.
The Knesset voted overwhelmingly to oppose any attempt to unilaterally impose a Palestinian state on Israel. Peace can only be achieved after we achieve total victory over Hamas and through direct negotiations between the parties without preconditions.
Israel's main opposition leader accused Netanyahu of creating spin, saying there is no serious international push for the unilateral creation of a Palestinian state, only a revival of negotiations for the two-state solution. And a new report by UNICEF says 1 out of 6 children in northern Gaza is suffering from acute malnutrition due to the war. Acute malnutrition afflicted just 1% of Gazans before the war, but has skyrocketed to 15% in the north and 5% in the south. The UN Children's Agency says 65% of families are now only eating 1 meal a day as food aid deliveries become more scarce. And in the UK, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak announced his country was imposing sanctions on 6 leaders of the prison where Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny died last week.
He died for a cause to which he dedicated his whole life, freedom, and to return home knowing that Putin had already tried to have him killed was one of the most courageous acts of our time. This morning we sanctioned those running the prison where Alexei Navalny's body still lies.
The 6 people being sanctioned are the head and 5 deputy heads of the Arctic Penal Colony. They are now banned from the UK and have had their assets frozen. Russia denies involvement with Navalny's death and says it is not Britain's place to interfere. And a controversial Quebec housing bill is now law. The government says it will help increase the housing supply. But housing advocates say it will limit the practice called lease transfers, and that unfairly helps landlords and will hurt tenants. Sarah Levitt has more.
La motion est adoptée.
After months of back and forth in committee meetings, Quebec's new housing legislation, Bill 31, has been adopted. The government has tightened rules around evictions, including providing more compensation for those who are evicted. But by far the most controversial aspect surrounds lease transfers, something that led to multiple protests. For decades, Quebecers have been able to transfer their lease to another person without the rent increasing. Landlords could only refuse for specific reasons, like a failed credit check. Now, though, the law allows landlords to refuse without even giving a reason. Oliver Smith managed to get an apartment in Montreal via lease transfer, rushing to get it done before the law was passed.
It seems that landlords are just raising the rents at any opportunity.
Housing advocates are calling this new law a step backwards, particularly during a housing crisis. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Montreal.
In what's being called an unprecedented decision, the Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos have the right to the same legal protection as children. And it has those offering fertility services concerned about criminal liability. Richard Madden has more from Washington.
This is all based on 3 sets of parents who sued their medical provider when their frozen embryos were accidentally destroyed. A trial court rejected their wrongful death lawsuit, but last week the state's high court disagreed, with the Chief Justice using quotes from the Bible about the sanctity of unborn life. Now, IVF treatment uses as many eggs as possible, so that has doctors concerned if they would face wrongful death lawsuits if they discard them. Here's the CEO of Infertility Association Resolve, Barbara Kalura.
Now the court is saying that that's a person. Can we freeze embryos? I don't know. Can you freeze a person?
Other states could follow Alabama's lead, which could dramatically impact access to fertility treatment in certain states. Now, the White House is calling this ruling a terrifying development, blasting Republican leaders for reducing access to fertility treatment. They're also turning it into a campaign issue for women's rights heading into November's election. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
And Statistics Canada says there are now more millennials in the country than baby boomers. The population shift ends the baby boomers' 65-year reign as Canada's largest cohort. Higher immigration numbers are fueling the transition. That is the CBC News from Winnipeg.
Good afternoon, Manitoba. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app and on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Hi there, everybody. I'm Corey Funk in for Marjorie Dowhouse, and coming up this hour on the show, he was accidentally switched at birth and went home with a Ukrainian family. Now, decades later, he received his Métis citizenship. We're going to hear what that meant to him coming up at 12:35. But this half hour on the show, Manitoba country artist Jade Turner has made it to the semifinals of a major music competition, all while maintaining her day job as a millwright. We're going to hear her story coming up. But first, there's hundreds of millions of liters of raw sewage make its way towards Lake Winnipeg. We're going to hear from the mayor of Winnipeg Beach about her concerns. Over the past 2 weeks, more than 221 million liters of raw sewage have poured into the Red River from a broken pipe off Abenoji-Mikana here in Winnipeg. That's the equivalent of 88 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And eventually, it'll make its way to Lake Winnipeg, where algae blooms have been a constant concern for the community of Winnipeg Beach, which sits on the lake's southwest shore. Pam Jackson is the mayor and joins me now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So what was your reaction when you first heard of, this 221 million liters of raw sewage making its way towards Lake Winnipeg from here in Winnipeg?
Yeah, it's so upsetting. It's so disconcerting. This should not be happening. Our lake is at risk anyways, and to have this kind of raw sewage pouring into it is just not okay.
What kind of conversations do you have with the city of Winnipeg about the impacts that, the sewage has on you? And because this isn't the first time that sewage has made its way into the river and up into Lake Winnipeg.
No, it certainly isn't the first time. It seems to be a pretty constant recurring issue. So I haven't had any direct conversation with the city of Winnipeg. That's just not happened.
What kind of impact do these algae blooms have that come from, sewage making its way into Lake Winnipeg? What's the economic impact of the deteriorating condition of the lake?
Well, I mean, there's huge impact. First of all, the lake is a living, breathing thing, and when it has this amount of phosphorus and nitrogen being dumped into it, it really affects the health of the lake. Yes, there's algae blooms. That makes it really difficult, certainly for a tourist town when you have algae all over the top of the lake. It's also really hard for the aquatic life, the fish, and the living mass that the water is. So it's hard all the way around.
We kind of, I guess, upstream, we don't always necessarily see the direct impacts. Of course, we read about it in the news when these big algae blooms in the summer, things like that. But your community, I mean, you see it every single summer. What are you doing in your community to protect the lake in terms of what you do with your water?
Well, we can only do so much, right? We work with Eastern Inch Lake Watershed District. We work with Lake Winnipeg Foundation. We work with all of the foundations and planning districts that are around the lake and trying to come up with short-term and long-term strategies. But no matter what we do here at our end, as long as the city of Winnipeg has this kind of dumping into our lake happening, there's only so much we can do down here.
Where does most of the sewage go in your community?
Well, we don't necessarily, the sewage from our community goes into our lagoon systems. We have a very, very well-maintained lagoon system that releases once the water levels are good, and it works really, really well.
And so what would you like to see from the city of Winnipeg, from the province, even federally, to protect the lake in the future and prevent, more these kind of nutrients making its way into the lake? Not just, I guess, from these sewage leaks, but also, from other sources.
Well, you're right. I think it's not just a city issue, although right now, their issue is front and center. But I think it's a provincial and a federal issue. I mean, this lake, we're getting water up from the States. We're getting, it's a very big watershed that dumps into Lake Winnipeg. And I think that it's time for all levels of government to come together and start doing some holistic planning here. I mean, we're the 10th largest lake in the world, Lake Winnipeg. And we need to start taking care of our resources a whole lot better than what we have been. And so I do think it's time for all the governments to come together, all levels of government to come together.
If things don't change, what's at stake for your community?
Well, I mean, not just as a tourist destination, but also, we have a lot of fishers who make their life on the lake, as well as potentially losing a lake. That would be horrible. That would be horrible for our community. That would be horrible for our province.
Are you hopeful that things will get better?
I certainly hope so. I mean, I feel badly for the city of Winnipeg. They adopted a problem that is decades old in terms of taking care of the sewer lines and those kinds of things. So having these kinds of breaks, they certainly, I'm sure, didn't plan for it. It happens, but I'm hoping that they can get both federal and provincial funding to look at their infrastructure so we don't have these kinds of breaks anymore.
Well, thanks so much for joining us this afternoon, and really appreciate you taking time to join us on Radio Noon.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Pam Jackson is the mayor of Winnipeg Beach.
You have lots of questions about your own life and this really complex world around you. I'm Saroja Coelho. I'm the host of the new live call-in show, Just Asking. I take your questions about what's in the news or your finances, health, even your relationships, and then throw them to an expert. Our show launches on February 24th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, live from coast to coast to coast. Just Asking. Let's figure it out together.
12:13 right now. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Listen app. Well, right now in Winnipeg, we are sitting at -4, heading for a high today of -3. Brandon, -5, heading for a high of -3. And Thompson, -20 right now, heading for a high of -15 with some light snow. Well, millions of years before humans walked the earth, a very different species ruled the planet. Dinosaurs. Well, we may know quite a bit about the prehistoric creatures now. It turns out we only discovered what they were 200 years ago. And this week marks the anniversary of that discovery. On February 20th, 1824, an Oxford University researcher named the first dinosaur the Megalosaurus. Jordan Milan is a paleontologist at the Canadian Museum of Nature. He explains the significance of that discovery.
200 years, before then we knew nothing of dinosaurs, and when they found the first one, it sort of opened our eyes up to the world before us. All they had to go from was a lower jaw that was maybe the length of my forearm, and they knew it looked reptilian. It didn't look anything like our jaw or a mammal jaw, but that's all they had to go by. So they figured it looked like a big lumbering four-legged, humpbacked Godzilla. Back then, certainly, they thought these were kind of slow, lumbering, languid reptiles, which dinosaurs were reptiles, but they were anything but the rest. They were thought to sort of live along swamps and even in swamps and possibly have been aquatic. Megalosaurus is significant in that it was the first dinosaur to get a name. It means exactly what it sounds like it means. It's derived from the Greek. And Megalosaurus was one of these big bipedal carnivorous dinosaurs, something like a T-Rex or an Allosaurus that I think we're all familiar with, a little smaller than a T-Rex, though. Really, it opened our eyes to the fact that there was a world that came before humans. Up until that point, we really had no idea, and so the significance of Megalosaurus is just are coming to realize that fact, and we've gone so much further since. We know now something about the colors of dinosaurs and about their metabolisms and how they bred with one another and laid eggs and all the rest of it. But if it were not for Megalosaurus, we wouldn't have stood a chance.
Gotta love that epic dinosaur music in the background. That was Jordan Milan. He is a paleontologist at the Canadian Museum of Nature. Time now is 12:16 here on Radio Noon. I'm Corey Funk in for Marjorie Dowhouse.
Whatever the cost is, I'm gonna cut my losses. Get right back to being me.
Well, that's the voice of Manitoba country artist Jade Turner. The Mississipauwastuk Cree Nation member is a Red Seal millwright by day and musician, well, the rest of the time. Now her talents are being recognized in a major music contest. She's a semifinalist in Top of the Country competition put on by SiriusXM and the Canadian Country Music Association. And if she wins, she could find herself writing songs in Nashville and performing at major shows. And Jade joins us now. Congratulations there, Jade.
Hi, thank you so much.
So for those who haven't been following this competition so far, what has it taken for you to get to this point in the competition?
It's taken me quite a bit because, this is like the 6th time I've applied. I'm not even going to lie. I've been wanting this for a very long time. This is a very big competition and it's very hard to get into. So to, be part of it this year is absolutely insane.
So is it mostly like you have to, like what have you done? Do you have to perform? Do you have to write music? Like what all has it entailed?
Well, it just started. So today was the announcement. So from here on, I go to record my song in Vancouver. Some people are going to Toronto. And we get to record our song, and then from there it goes to voting, I believe, and then it gets picked to top 3. Like there's a whole process. This is going to go on until September.
Oh wow!
So I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, it looks like quite
very long process.
Wow. So do you have the song written yet? Are you still working on that? Like how does that work?
I had to write a brand new song for this. I was writing prior to this just for my album. But because those are already recorded, this is an opportunity that I could record a brand new single in such a great studio and great space. So I took the opportunity and I got to writing.
Wow. And what difference would winning this competition make for your music career?
It would be huge. It would be very substantial. Like I said, I'm a millwright. I'm a single mom working. My baby's calling me right now, getting mad. So to be able to just do one career instead of both, plus being a mom, would be incredible. And I think this would give me the opportunity to do so.
So the goal is to become a full-time musician.
For sure. It's always been my goal.
Take me back a little bit. And if at any point you need to step away to take care of your baby, like I'm a parent, I get it. When did you start playing, writing, and performing music?
I've been doing this for quite a while now. I didn't really start taking it like seriously to the point where I was like, okay, I have to do this and this is going to be my career choice. Probably until about 2017-ish, 2018 is when I really got into it. And I said, you know what, I could do this, and told myself that I can. And I've been writing and working towards this goal since then.
Oh wow! And it was so early on in your life. Like, what is it about music, country music, that spoke to you, that made you want to do this?
Faith Hill, Faith Hill, Martina McBride, Tricia. I grew up with the icons, the vocal icons of country music. I think for that time, and they were just so inspirational to me, and I loved singing them. Singing was my actual, that was the first thing I fell in love with. It gave me an outlet to just release any kind of energy that we're going through, and singing those songs and singing their music was just so inspiring. And I've always just loved country music and loved that you can tell really hard stories through country music. If you listen to Faith Hill's first 2 albums. They're like very heartbreaking. And I was a little kid singing them, not knowing what I was singing. but I felt it, and I was just like so inspired by that.
And so you've been singing Faithful since you're a little kid. Do you remember the first time someone was like, you've got a voice on you?
I don't really remember an exact moment. I've been singing since I was like literally in a car seat.
Wow.
My mom and my family tell me a story that I was singing "Rockin' Chairs, Rockin' Babies." That song. I was like singing the girl vocals in the back in my little chair when I was just a kid. So I don't really remember like anybody ever saying like, "Oh yeah, you got a great voice" or whatever. But like I've just always done it. Like it's just always been part of my life, and yeah, it's my first love for sure.
And what is it about singing that you find that you love so much? Is there a kind of therapeutic quality to it?
Oh, definitely. It's definitely my therapy. It's always been, music saved my life many times.
What do you mean by that?
I moved a lot. I moved pretty much. I think I lived in about 15 different northern communities in my lifetime, just by the time I was in high school. So. Music was my constant, and music was like always the thing that that just helped me through a lot of difficult times.
We've got your newest song lined up here, Dead Weight. And before we play it, I just want you to tell me a little bit about the story behind it. What inspired it?
Yeah, so I was getting really hurtful comments on my Facebook or on a performance post one time about my body, and not long after that, I was scheduled to write with Crystal Schwanda, who also, experiences this and in her career, and it's really hard sometimes. And so we decided on the name Dead Weight before we started writing the song. And it was like, you know what, let's just write a really powerful song that we could say heck with the negative energies and just let it go and just stand in your power. And so we wrote that song together, and it was an actual dream come true because she's been my shiro, like seeing her on CMT when she first started was like incredible for me. Like absolutely. I think that was one of the main things that changed my mind about like, no, I can do this. If she can do it, I can do it. And, seeing that representation of Indigenous artists in the country scene and on that size of a platform was life-changing for me. So, yeah, it was awesome.
I know also, so we're going to play the full version, but actually shortly after the release of Dead Weight, you actually released an acoustic version as well. Why strip it down like that?
I love the acoustic version. That's the version that we had first. And I couldn't part with it. I was like, no, we got to release this too. We have to. It's just so good, like so stripped down. I love any stripped down version of songs. Just, I don't know, the writer in me just absolutely loves that. So we decided to do that for the video instead of the full actual like bigger production of the song. And I'm really happy I did that because that's the song that I sent to this competition to get in.
Oh, really? Okay. So
I sent a acoustic performance of me performing last year at a showcase at CCMAs last year. Like it wasn't part of CCMAs, but it was like during the week. They have like a whole bunch of different types of showcasing. So somebody recorded me during that, and I sent them that. So very thankful.
Yeah. Well, all the best with this competition. We're going to have you on because I'm so curious I know we can't play obviously the song that you've wrote yet, but when that does come out, we're going to have you on to talk a little bit about that as well. And all the best in the competition. We're rooting for you.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to represent Manitoba and represent my Indigenous community.
Okay. Thanks. Have a good one.
Thank you. You too.
Jade Turner is a semifinalist in Top of the Country competition. And here's the song that got her into it. Here she is with Dead Weight.
Out in the schoolyard, I got a real heart. It cut me to the core. That's where I learned how to keep my head down. I'm not doing that anymore. Whatever the cost is, gonna cut my losses, get right back to being me. Turn off the voices, make my own choices of who I wanna be. They can hate if they wanna hate, but I ain't gonna break, 'cause that's just dead weight. Feeling I'm not good enough, that shit is real tough. I don't like feeling this way. Looking at the big screen, but I don't see me. Yeah, something's gotta change. Whatever the cost is, gonna cut my losses, get right back to being me. Turn off the voices, make my own choices of who I wanna be. They can hate if they wanna hate, but I ain't gonna break, 'cause that's just dead weight. Whatever the cost is, gonna cut my losses, get right back to being me. Turn off the voices, make my own choices of who I wanna be. They can hate if they wanna hate, but I ain't gonna break, 'cause that's just dead weight. Oh, that's just dead weight. Oh, yeah.
Check out her YouTube page, Jade Turner Music. Also, if you just want to keep in touch with her, follow her competition, her music, anything like that, she has a website as well, jadeturnermusic.com.
Commotion with Elamin Abdelmahmoud.
It's time to talk about funflation.
Crime Story.
You got one witness who can't be found.
This American Life with Ira Glass.
There are signs that read, see something, say something.
Radio Lab.
What is coming up? What is going wrong, actually?
The Sunday Magazine with Pia Chattopadhyay.
How does the last 24 plus hours complicate or change things?
Telling Stories. Sunday night on CBC Radio 1 and on the Listen app.
Well, 12:29 right now, and still to come here on Radio Noon. He was accidentally switched at birth and went home with a Ukrainian family. Now, decades later, he received his Métis citizenship. We're going to hear what that meant to him coming up after your news. But first, let's take a quick look at your weather here. Churchill, you're a cold spot right now at minus 26. Gillam, minus 22 right now. Hotspot is Melita, the Paw, minus 10. Thompson, the airport, minus 20. Winnipeg, minus 4. I'll see you after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good afternoon, I'm Rosanna Hempel in Winnipeg. At 12:30, it's minus 4 in Winnipeg, becoming a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon, high of minus 2, wind chill minus 4 this afternoon. Another 700 million litres of raw sewage has leaked into the Red River near the Fort Garry Bridge in the last 24 hours. The city's website says more than 200 million litres have leaked from the site this month. That raw sewage ends up in Lake Winnipeg. Winnipeg Beach Mayor Pam Jackson is worried.
It's so upsetting. It's so disconcerting. This should not be happening. Our lake is at risk anyways, and to have this kind of raw sewage pouring into it is just not okay.
Jackson hasn't talked with Winnipeg officials. She says this will have huge impacts on algae blooms and fish stocks. Jackson says it's time for Ottawa and the province to spend money to upgrade Winnipeg's aging sewer infrastructure. A funeral is being held in Carman, Manitoba for a dedicated mom, a 6-year-old girl with a passion for mermaids, a 4-year-old boy who loved dinosaurs, and a 2-month-old baby who was the little princess of the family. Mourners remembered Amanda Clearwater, her young children, and her 17-year-old niece, Maya Lee Grattan, who were murdered in 3 locations 10 days ago. Grattan's mother says her daughter was excited about getting tattoos for her upcoming birthday to commemorate her faith, siblings, and family. And the city of Winnipeg needs to put dollars behind its newcomer welcome and inclusion policy or risk losing people to other cities. That's according to the Manitoba Association of Newcomer Serving Organizations, or MANSO. It's demanding the city create 2 positions within city government to make the city a welcoming place. It would include resources and training for city staff. Vicky Sinclair is MANSO's executive director.
There needs to be more full-time staff working on this and a proper budget for it, because it can't be done for free and no other city is managing to do it for free. So we realise there's a lot of competition for city dollars, but we think this is a high priority with 25% of the population being immigrants and those numbers growing every year.
Sinclair says other cities have staff and inclusive websites in a number of languages. She says, as a result, many newcomers leave Winnipeg to places that feel more welcoming. That is CBC News from Winnipeg. Your next local CBC News is at 1:30. In Winnipeg tonight, partly cloudy, clearing near midnight, low of -9, wind chill of -7 this evening and -16 overnight. Tomorrow, a mix of sun and cloud, a high of +1. Wind chill -17 in the afternoon. And in Brandon today, cloudy, becoming a mix of sun and cloud this afternoon. A high of -3, wind chill of -5 this afternoon. And tonight, a few clouds, fog patches developing near midnight.
Thank you very much, Rosanna.
You're welcome.
That is Rosanna Hempel at our CBC News Desk. You're listening to Radio Noon here on CBC Radio 1 and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Hi there, everybody. Hello, Internet. Nice to meet you. And joining us here in studio and on the Internet with a deeper look at our weather forecast right now is our CBC weather specialist, Riley Lechuk. Hello.
Good afternoon. Another pleasant day ahead for most of us in Manitoba. We do have some snow moving through parts of the north, though. Maybe a few flurries in parts of southern Manitoba, very scattered in nature, though. So Winnipeg at -4 under a mix of sun and clouds, very light winds right now, just at 6 kilometers an hour at the airport. We're looking at, like I said, a mix of sun and clouds through the afternoon today. Few scattered flurries, really south of the Trans-Canada Highway into the Pilot Mound, Morden-Winkler, down into the Emerson region. Possibility of maybe a few snowflakes through the afternoon today. But northern Manitoba, really looking at some snow over the next 24 hours or so, moving into the Thompson region, into the Island Lake Shamato region by tonight. I'm thinking about 5 centimeters or so by the time this is all said and done. That moves out by the time we get into Thursday morning, and by the time we get into the lunch hour, very slim possibility of some flurries, possibly even as far south as the northern Interlakes. So like I said, we're looking at I'm saying about 5 centimeters in a swath from Lynn Lake, Brochet, through the Island Lake region and into Shamattawa. So not a lot in terms of accumulation in northern Manitoba, but certainly some snow falling today. So looking at a chance of flurries, -2 in Brandon, 0 in Morden and Winkler this afternoon. I've got us at -3 later this afternoon in Winnipeg, Thompson at -13 degrees. And really a bit of a roller coaster temperature-wise over the next few days. We're looking at a +2 on the way for Thursday under a mix of sun and clouds. Sunny -7 for Friday, and then +6 under a sunny sky on Saturday. Things get interesting next week, Corey. We could see some snow moving through the later part of Monday into Tuesday. Not major accumulation at this point, but still some disagreements with the forecast model. So we'll keep an eye on that as we get into next week.
I could really use some snow. I haven't had a proper ski yet this year.
Yeah.
A proper cross-country ski.
Yeah. If you do want to find some snow, Riding Mountain National Park.
Yes, I heard they got a big jumping. That's
They've
awesome.
got a lot of snow in the Riding Mountain region.
Okay,
so.
I'll try my best to get out there.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Riley.
You're welcome.
That is our CBC weather specialist, Riley Lechuk. Well, Edward Ambrose spent over 6 decades believing he was born to a Ukrainian family in Arborg, Manitoba. But he wasn't. He was born to a Métis family. But a mistake at the hospital sent him home with the wrong people. So when a DNA test revealed he wasn't related to his family, it uprooted his whole sense of identity.
I wasn't ready for that. To me, it was a shock to me. It was hurting. There was like something ripped out of me, like someone pulled out a piece of me.
That was Ambrose telling his story to CBC's Stephanie Cram a year ago, and now he got a bit of his identity back when he became a Métis citizen last week. Ambrose spoke with CBC's Bryce Hoy about what that moment was like.
Knowing that I was gonna receive it, but wasn't sure when I was gonna receive it. But finding out that David Chartrand wanted to present it personally to me, so that was very touchy for me when I first went in. I had my daughter Eileen and my biological sister Leona. So usually I don't usually break down that easily, but this kind of a time that I have gone through all this from the beginning, finding out, it was very threw me back into that same situation of meeting David Chartrand and seeing him and him reaching out to me, put tears into my eyes, but the tears and everything else that came with it, because I couldn't hold it. I had to cry. The affectionate, about this, and I tried to say a word, and that's when I lost it. And with him, with David Chartrand, he made me very comfortable, welcomed into the Manitoba, into the Métis, which for thinking what I was growing up was not that. I grew up as Ukrainian, and of getting the card, it was pulling me to who I am. So that was very very emotional for me to try and to understand, to try and take it all in, and yeah, it wasn't easy, but when he welcomed me as to that I belong with them. This is my family.
You grew up under the assumption that you're Ukrainian in a loving family with great siblings, great father, all of that. How are you at this point, now that you officially have your Métis citizenship? How are you reconciling these two things? I have a biological sister here in Winnipeg, which she is like 5-10 minutes from me, and in the past I didn't even know she existed. And I went to take our grandson to the school, and we had probably seen each other, and we never knew. And now that I meet with her now, with Leona, she will come back after the mornings when we drop off the kids, come back and have the coffee together with my wife, and it's challenging when you see someone that you didn't know was your blood, your relation to you. It's overwhelming, we going yesterday to the Louis Riel. We went together for that, and with my wife and my daughter and grandson. We all went there. So we have step by step
as the time comes, the opportunities that we can take in.
Yeah. Where are you now in terms of processing the confusion, pain, grief, but also the sort of sense of something new?
I don't think the confusion that you're saying, the pain and the grief of what went through, that'll always be there. You'll never walk away from that. But for now that I know who I am and I know who my biological sisters and brothers are like, so it's a step forward. It's a step forward toward positive, So the past is it's something that you didn't know, and then when you found out, it was devastating for to find out you're not an Ambrose, but finding out later that you're not an Ambrose, and this is who you are. You're a Bouvet. So it's a step forward, which is it's a positive way that I can follow now. I know where I belong, and I know where I go from here. And
that was Edward Ambrose speaking with CBC's Bryce Hoy yesterday. You can read more about this story on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
12:43 right now on Radio Noon. I'm Corey Funk, in from Marjorie Dowhouse. Well, how about we take a little trip to the East Coast? If you find yourself in the towns around St. John, New Brunswick, you might well find Zach Ingalls hosting open mic nights in any number of local breweries. And when he's not doing that, Zach's recording new music of his own, including this song. It's called Weathered Heart. You're hearing it right here on CBC Radio 1.
Long time to hear those words, to move from unresolved back to solved, return to the truth of it all, carry on. Tried to work up the nerve to say it straight, rehearsed it in front of the mirror. Rewrote it a dozen times, but it still ain't clear. And I don't wanna wait, can't stick around, holding my breath for a break in the clouds, 'cause you ain't coming to me. And this weathered heart's got other places to be. Easily climb out and shake off the dust, pretend that hole wasn't deep, but I threw back the shovel, said you still got a long way to dig. And I don't wanna wait, can't stick around, holding my breath for a break in the clouds, 'cause you ain't coming to me. This weathered heart's got other places to be. I don't wanna wait, can't stick around, holding my breath for a break in the clouds, 'cause you ain't coming to me. And this weathered heart's got other places to be. Oh, this weathered heart's got other places to be. This weathered heart's got other places to be.
That's Zach Ingalls with Weathered Heart. You heard right here on CBC Radio 1. You're listening to Radio Noon. I'm Corey Funk in for Marjorie Dowhouse. Well, hopefully your heart's not feeling too weathered with this kind of strange winter we've been having so far. Warm so far for February. Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending how you see it. -4 right now in Winnipeg at the Forks, heading for a high of -2. Brandon, -5 right now, heading for a high of -3. Sunny right now, -20 in Thompson, and heading for a high of -15 today. You might get some light snow as well. Well, when lighting up your home, LEDs are considered the most eco-friendly option, but they do burn out eventually, just like other light bulbs. And as more light fixtures with integrated LED chips come on the market, CBC listener Jerome Nguyen asked us, are they still the greenest option, especially when you may need to get rid of the whole thing at the end of its life cycle? CBC radio producer Vivian Luck went to find out.
Okay, we'll get to Jerome's question in a minute, but first, let's compare LEDs, or light-emitting diodes, with the many other light bulbs you can choose from on store shelves. Let's see. This one is an incandescent bulb, 40 watts. This one here is also 40 watts. It's an LED, dimmable, soft white. Number 1, LEDs are a lot more energy efficient. That is, they require less power or wattage to deliver light.
You could have a 60-watt incandescent bulb today that would only require for an LED of about 7 watts of electricity. The fluorescent might be 10 watts.
That's Gregory Kialian, a professor and the co-director of the Center for Sustainable Systems at the University of Michigan. Greg has done a lot of research on the costs and energy savings of switching from incandescent and fluorescent lights to LEDs. He says one other way LEDs are more energy efficient than those other lights is they give off less heat.
You know, growing up, I think my sister got an easy bake oven that was powered up by an incandescent bulb to provide the heat for the oven. It gives off a lot of heat, so the LED generates much less heat and provides more light energy for the same amount of electricity than the incandescent.
To be clear, incandescent bulbs are the least energy efficient out of all the regular bulbs, like fluorescent or halogen. With incandescent bulbs, about 90 to 95% of energy is dissipated as heat, and only 5% goes into lighting. With LEDs, it's the other way around. Also, LEDs last way longer than all the others, typically anywhere from 30,000 to 60,000 hours. And when choosing a lighting system, all of those energy savings matter because the less electricity you use, well, the better it is for your wallet, obviously, but also the lower your carbon footprint.
The biggest impact in terms of lighting is really from the energy used for operating lighting. You know, much of our grid in the United States and, you know, in Canada too, is reliant on fossil fuels. In burning those fossil fuels, we release greenhouse gases. So we want to minimize, you know, our use of electricity.
Okay, now that we've covered the basics of LEDs versus other light bulbs, let's go back to Jerome's question about integrated fixtures, where the LED chips are fixed and can't easily be removed. Now, we've already established that LEDs last longer than standard bulbs, but everything has an expiration date. So unless you go with a brand that comes with replacement nodules, you're going to have to toss out the whole integrated LED fixture eventually when it burns out. The good news is, similar to regular lamps, LED fixtures can be recycled. The process isn't perfect though.
There's, gaps in knowledge how we can do it better.
That's Maria Halusko, an associate professor of mining engineering at the University of British Columbia. She spent the last 5 years or so working with local recyclers and researching how to recycle LEDs more sustainably. Just like with most other lights, Maria says that after you drop off your LED fixture at your local recycling facility, or even at some home goods stores, The different parts get broken down and the metals get separated from the glass and other components. Then the metal parts, like aluminum and copper, they get sent to a smelter to be processed. But Maria says LEDs also have other metals, like bits of gold, for example, that aren't easily recovered right now.
Is the biggest challenge to get those metals out, right? Then they will end up in the landfill.
So that part of the recycling process is still being figured out. But Maria says that from a consumer's perspective, going for an LED fixture is always the greener option.
From the energy point of view, absolutely. Like 90% of energy goes into lighting, and they last longer, they are more durable. And if taken care appropriately for recycling, I would say that there is absolutely less environmental impact than the other lamps.
For CBC Radio, I'm Vivian Luck.
You can hear more climate solutions on CBC's What on Earth. The show airs today at 2 p.m., or you can listen now on the CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, time now is 12:52 here on Radio Noon. And we've got time for a little bit of music before we end off the show today. Up next, Manitoba-based songwriter, singer Letha Ross is up for their first Juno with a nomination for Alternative Album of the Year for their full-length debut, To Learn. From that album, this is You in My Arm. A personal favorite of mine, actually.
I wish I'd had a chance to walk with you to parties. You would wear a dress and I would say I'm sorry for something, don't know what it'd be. But you'd say nothing, it's nothing, and smile at me. I wanna sit around and watch you do your hair, talk it all into the ground. Have a ceremony there for something, don't know what it'd be. But it'd become nothing, it's nothing, and you'd smile at me. I wanna buy you pretty little things and never ever lie to you. Watch you get dressed and compliment your taste. I'd be better armed if you agreed to take it. I wish I'd had a chance to take over the driving. You'd swear to keep me up and fall asleep beside me, and nothing, no terrible dream could ever wake us. I don't wanna wake up. And then one good day when we live in the same city, I'll come by and tell you that you look insanely pretty, like something, don't know what it'd be. But you'd say nothing, like something, and smile at me. I wanna buy you pretty little things and never ever lie to you. Watch you get dressed and compliment your taste, 'cause I'd be better armed if you agreed to take it. I'd be better armed if you agreed to take it. I wish I'd had a chance to walk with you to parties where you would wear a dress and I would say I'm sorry for something. I
That's Manitoba-based singer-songwriter Leith Ross with their song "You on My Arm," and this is their first Juno nomination for Alternative Album of the Year. That album's called "To Learn," and they're one of many Manitobans nominated. Actually, Chloe Friesen, guest host of Up to Speed, is in studio with me, and we are kind of fangirling over Leith Ross and just generally Manitoba musicians these days.
It's their first full-length album and already nominated for a Juno for Album of the Year in the alternative category. It's wild.
It's wild. And we had Jade Turner on the show earlier. She's going places.
She's
and I'm looking
amazing.
at the nominees for the Junos from Manitoba: William Prince, Begonia, Ken Mode, Jocelyn Gould.
James Ennis is in there. Zune.
Yeah, it's quite wild, all the Manitoba talent, and we really there's something special going on in the Manitoba music scene. It's
For
pretty
sure.
cool to see.
I'm excited to tune into the Junos just to see the Manitoba faces in the crowd. Oh, it's going to be a great time.
And I'm excited to tune in to your show this afternoon, Up to Speed from 3 to 6, because you got some cool stuff in the works. Tell me what you got going on.
Yeah, Corey, have you ever heard of the brand Gildan?
Gildan, it's like is that underwear?
They have underwear. They have like crew neck sweaters.
Mhm.
Like if you order in bulk, usually you can get sweaters printed. Gildan is a pretty like go-to company for that. So they're known for their t-shirts and hoodies, but that's not what's behind Gildan Activewear. Their recent headline-grabbing news. We'll hear the details of the boardroom drama unfolding at the Canadian company with CBC Money columnist Bruce Sellery. So that's coming up.
Ooh, I'm getting
And
some Succession vibes.
a little Gildan's the Succession version of Gildan. I've heard it also might have to do with underwear.
Okay.
So stay tuned. I'm so curious. But
I'm
Bruce, of
curious
course, will bring us the full story.
Oh, yes, I'm excited for that. Thank you very much, Chloe.
No problem.
That's Chloe Friesen sitting in the host chair today for Faith Wendell on Up to Speed. You can catch her from 3 to 6. Well, that is a wrap for today's edition of Radio Noon. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. And thanks to the wonderful folks who helped put together today's show. Rosanna Hempel was on news. Travis Peterson was making us look wonderful on YouTube. Mae McKillop, our director and technician. Nellie Gonzalez, our show producer, and Leif Larson, our senior producer of audio. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marjorie Dowhouse. She'll be back in the chair tomorrow. It's been a pleasure spending the beginning of this week with you so far. You're listening to CBC Radio 1, and coming up next, Writers in Company. Have a good one.